Good morning, everyone. First, I want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity to step up here. Let's begin with a little word of prayer. So you bow your heads with me. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. This is a day to rejoice in, for we are here and we are made by you, and we are forever in your presence, and you never leave our side. I pray that you guide me today, and I preach your word and your truths truthfully and adeptly, and that I can maybe be a light to someone's life today. Guide us in our journeys, wherever they may take us, and just forever be with us and guide us. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. So when I was first approached by Pastor Vera, she asked me, how would you feel about giving a message? And on the outside I was like, oh yeah, totally, that'd be fine. Inside, I am utterly panicked. I am no stranger to being on stage. Normally, I'm screaming my face off, and I'm communicating with people this way. So this is a little strange for me, a little vulnerable. So I pray that you stay with me. I tend to ramble, so I will try to curtail that as much as I can. But when she approached me, she wanted me to talk about, we have a lot of graduates this year. We have a lot of people in transitional periods of their lives. I am no stranger to that. This year has been a big transition for me. So when she approached me with that idea, I kept having this vision of standing on a cliff. I know it sounds rather dramatic, and it sounds rather, I do sing opera, so it's kind of in my wheelhouse. I thought about times in our lives when we feel like we're on a cliff. And I thought of 3 specific situations. And as a graduate or as a student in any capacity in your life, you may feel that in times when you are going from one situation to the next, when you're changing schools, when you're moving to a new place, when you're going from middle school to high school, when you're graduating from high school. These are big moments in your life. I think that also pertains to us as adults. When you have health issues, when you change a career path, when you let go of your children, when you do things that are different, that are outside of your comfort zone, we often feel like we're on a cliff, and that can mean several different things. And I want to go through a couple of those situations to share my life experience and hopefully be able to guide and give a little light today. So the first cliff that I want to talk about, who has seen Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom? Can we raise a hands? I want to know. So this is a movie, I grew up seeing this movie. There's a point where Indiana Jones is running from the people who are trying to kill him because he's been in their space and has rescued the woman that he loves or loves at the moment. And he comes to a cliff, and there is this very long, narrow, rickety bridge that is connecting both sides. There's a deep ravine, and there are crocodiles on the bottom of this ravine. And this is not the kind of bridge that really invites you. It's not like the Brooklyn Bridge. It's not sturdy in any way. This is swaying in the breeze. You have rotten pieces of wood. There are gaps. And so he has no choice but to cross this bridge. And I think we all know what happens. Obviously, he gets across, but people fall through the bridge. Indiana Jones himself almost falls off the bridge, and that bridge literally snaps and swings to the other side of the ravine. And now I thought, well, that seems like life sometimes, doesn't it? You see on the other side where you need to be. You see what your next choice is. Because sometimes you have the option. He could have kept running to the side. He could have ran around the ravine, but he was like, I have to go across that bridge. And I think sometimes in our life, we see that too. When I was graduating high school and then going through the college application process and seeing what my options were and what I wanted with my life and where I felt like I was led, I had a couple options. And I had schools that I could have gone to that would have been cheaper, probably would have been easier, probably would have been a different situation for me. But I knew that Peabody was where I was supposed to be. I knew that that was what was going to give me the best results out of what I was looking for, what I wanted to do with my life. And I knew in my heart that that's where I was being led to go for whatever reason. And I was later to learn that that was, different than what I thought. But that was a hard thing to come to, because it means putting myself in debt. It means going to a very intense environment. It means, doing all these different things. And with any situation, there comes with these changes. There comes with these uncertainties. And that's scary. And that's a scary place to be. And we often want to sit in places that we're comfortable. I'm perfectly content to sit on this side of the ravine and just look out. Okay, I don't want to go on that bridge. I'm also very afraid of heights, so that is not really something that's very appealing to me. So graduates, as you're coming out of high school, you're faced with that same situation. Well, is this what I'm really supposed to do? This is different. Oh, I could stay at home. I could keep doing the same thing. That'd be fine. That's okay. Is it though? Is that really what it is that we're meant to do? Is that really the right choice for me? Adults, you know this feeling. You see we have so many people in this congregation who came to a different country and started over again. You know how hard that is. And that is something that is terrifying. Because what if there's always the chance of failure? Look at the Israelites who went out into the wilderness and who wandered for 40 years, and you had Moses. I'm sure Moses had times that he was like, I don't know what I'm doing. He tried to run away from God's call. He ran in the opposite direction of that bridge. And God was like, no, this is what you're doing. I'm going to help you along the way. In my life, I've seen that. You have a fight or flight sort of resolve in you. We all do. It's biology. It's nature. And God, a lot of times, asks us to fight and to put ourselves out there and to take that chance to go out into the wilderness, to search for the promised land, even though we don't know what is beyond that. Crossing that bridge, even though we might fall and we might end up eaten by the crocodiles. I deal with that on a daily basis. I'm dealing with that right now. This week, I had to move. I moved from my apartment that I've been in for about a year. And this was a hard thing for me to realize, because this was the first stage of me leaving Baltimore. And I am utterly terrified. I lived in Maryland my whole life. I've been no further away from my parents and my family than an hour. They're not all too thrilled about me moving either. But I was really pensive this week, because that's a big change. That means me stepping out of my comfort zone. And we as human beings, we want to be comforted. We want to huddle underneath the blankets and stay where it's nice and warm and safe. And we don't want to expose ourselves. And God calls us to expose ourselves and to be vulnerable and to step out on that bridge. So this is kind of the first idea that struck me. The second bridge that I wanted to talk about. If you go to Great Britain, if you go to sort of the northern side of the island, there is a very intense fog that comes in. And I was struck by the image of, I don't know if anyone knows the book Wuthering Heights, but there's a scene where the main protagonist, she's standing on a cliff and she's in turmoil, and it's a very depressing novel and all that fun stuff. But I kept thinking of this idea of we're standing on a cliff, but you can't see anything about you because there is this heavy, heavy fog. And we don't see anything around us. So what do? Do you just stand there? Do you wait for the fog to clear? Do you keep going? Because what if you keep going and you can't see yourself and you fall off that cliff? That could be a very paralyzing feeling, right? Because you can't see anything else around you. I think that's like life too. when I was applying for college. I'm sorry I keep talking to myself, but my own life is my own experience, and that's why I can relate to you. When I was applying for grad school, I was so sure that I wasn't going to get in. I was so sure that I was going to be here in Baltimore longer, and that was a paralyzing feeling. I was like, is this what I want to do with my life? Is this what's going to happen if I don't end up going to school? Is music even what I want to keep doing with my life? Maybe I could just find an office job and just work that. You know, we can often find these times where we can't see anything. And we can just sit there and we can wait. And sometimes God calls us to wait. Sometimes we have to wait. I mean, Israelites had to wait, 40 years in the wilderness before they could see the promised land? You know, sometimes that's what God wants. God wants us to wait. But we can also paralyze ourselves and get stuck in this way. Some of my private students will understand this. So as a voice instructor, as a teacher, I talk about us getting back to the state of a child. And you know how babies can scream forever and ever and ever and never stop, and they never get tired, and they keep doing it. And that's because they haven't learned things to get in their own way. They haven't learned these habits or these behaviors that prevent that. And as a singer and as a teacher, I'm constantly trying to get out of my way. I'm constantly trying to reassess, how am I perceiving this situation? How am I looking at this? What am I doing to kind of get in my own way? And whether you're a singer or not, you do that. We all do it. It's human nature. We're imperfect beings, and we create more problems for ourselves. We blind ourselves in our everyday lives. I don't mean that literally, but if we don't see what it is that we're supposed to do right away, and we don't see anything around us, it's very easy to be like, okay, well, I'm going to do this, and you know, this is what I should be doing, and maybe that's not really what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm not comfortable waiting, and I'm not comfortable making a commitment to doing something, so I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to settle, and I'm going to be comfortable. And we're missing what it is that God's doing in our lives. And we are blinding ourselves to what is happening behind the fog. There are so many times in my life that God was doing things in my life that I couldn't see. And looking back now, I see what it is that was happening. I mean, hindsight's 20/20, right? And we keep getting in our own way, and we keep making things harder for ourselves. I know I am very good at that. I like to do things a certain way, and I like to get in my own way. And God can use that. And God can put us in a very humbling position by making us wait. Because sometimes we have to wait. And sometimes we're meant to go. And sometimes, who knows what it is and where you are supposed to be on your journey. The only person who knows that is God. And God shows you that in his own timeline. And so I'm looking back, going to Peabody, thinking I had a very good idea of what I wanted from my life and what I was going to do and what my life was going to look like. And that completely being turned upside down. I left home. I changed so much as a person. My relationship with my family changed a lot. Who I perceived myself to be changed. I went from being a classical saxophonist, wanting to go be in military bands, to being a singer, wanting to sing opera and classical music and do everything under the sun. I never thought that I'd be doing the things that I'm doing now. But looking back, I see all these things. And I'm sure every adult in here can say the same thing about their lives. And when we sit in these places, when we just huddle down in the fog, and we don't make a commitment to follow where God is leading our heart to go, we paralyze ourselves, and we can miss the great things that are happening on around us. And we're not living our lives because we're afraid, because we are content to stay in the unknown, even though we want to have some sort of direction. We want somewhere to go. And as you, as students, are kind of going and growing in your life and going through a serious developmental time in your life is changing so much. I mean, as a teenager, you experience some of the most change that you'll ever experience in your life. It sometimes will feel as though you're lost. Sometimes will feel as though you are stuck in this fog. And sometimes you are so caught up in this fog and this everything that's going on around you that you realize that that fog is you, and you're not really on a cliff. You're really on the exact path that you're supposed to go to. You just don't know it. So I challenge everyone, including myself, in these times when we feel lost, to really search into your heart and to really ask for God's direction, to seek where is it that I'm supposed to go in this time when I feel as though I am lost and I can't see anything beyond myself. So that's our second cliff, which really isn't a cliff, so I'm sorry I tricked you. The third cliff that I wanted to talk about is a cliff at a chasm. There is no other side of this ravine. There is no bridge. There is no way backwards. You are stuck on this cliff, and there is nothing but void in front of you. This is different than feeling like you're stuck or feeling lost. You feel as though you are at the end of your rope. You feel as though there's no other direction but to go off this cliff. And if I'm being very honest, I've been there several times. When I was a junior in college, I was extremely stressed. I was working on 3 degrees. I was working 30 hours a week to pay for my life. I was changing a lot immensely, and my relationships with everyone was very strained. I was dealing with feeling not talented enough. I was dealing with feeling not attractive enough, not wanted, not enough in any capacity. And I felt that way a couple of times in my life. And depression has been a big thing in my life. And I think it's easy to kind of slough off depression and be like, oh, we all have it. And yeah, I think all of us do have that in some capacity. But I got to a place in where I took the resolve to go see a therapist. And she diagnosed me, and in the time of seeing her for a little while, she diagnosed me with a high-functioning depression, which means that on the surface, I am very good at making everything seem as though it's good. I was able to work, to do 30 credits, keep a 3.9 GPA, work all the hours that I need to accomplish everything that I could. But when I had a moment of second, I would crash, and I would fall into these dark places, and fall in these places where I felt like nothing. Like I felt like I was completely alone. And there were times when I stood on that cliff, and I tried to jump, and I tried to end things, because I couldn't see my way out. I couldn't see any other route, because I was so tired, and I was so stretched, and I was so broken that I felt that I had no other choice but to leap off that chasm. But every time I was at that place, something stopped me. There was a light. There was something within me that stopped me, that snapped me out of this spiral. And I don't know what it was. I mean, I do now, recognizing that was God there every single time. That was God creating me and filling me and using me in those moments of brokenness and feeling like I was nothing. I saw this great interview with Jane Fonda. I love Jane Fonda. She's great. She's, a really strong, empowered woman. And she talks about her life, about being broken. And she says we're not broken. We are broken open. And that was a really beautiful image to me. Because in those moments of broken, on those moments of wanting to leap off the cliff, God can use those moments. And God can use those situations to show you who you really are. Because you are enough. You are enough. But you are enough because God says you are enough. God says who we are. And we are created in his image. We are who we are. I have struggled with that a lot in my life, who I am. Who am I supposed to be? Does that agree with everything that I've been raised to believe in? Has that been everything that the world tells me? I don't know. And I struggle with that every day, to figure out who I am, standing on this cliff, teetering back and forth. And that is a scary feeling. But like Jane Fonda says, we are broken, open. And when we are broken open, God can fill us. God can fill us in these cracks and these wounds and these places that we never thought could be used or filled or transformed. I have changed an incredible amount in the past 6 years. There was a great poet who said, I've already lost contact with the person I was 3 lives ago, or 3 people ago. Because we, as people, are always changing, because the world is changing, our ideas are changing, our situations are changing, and it's easy to get lost and to lose our faith and to lose our sense of direction, to lose our resolve, and we wind up right on the edge of that cliff again. And I struggle with that every day. Depression, anxiety. I struggled a lot with social anxiety in my life. When you're talking to someone and you start panicking, it's like, oh, I don't know. And it has kept me a lot from establishing relationships with a lot of people, which has only contributed to the things that I've struggled with. And no one's struggling is worse or better than the others. We all have things in our lives. We all have baggage.
Yes.
We all have difficulties. I mean, look at Paul. Paul got literally blinded, and God used that, put him in this broken place, because that's where he needed to be. He needed to be in this place so that God could use him as a vessel. I remember one time, a couple churches ago, there was this kid. I was floored by the profoundness of this child. I think it was like 6 or 7, who offered a prayer and basically said, God, I pray that you give us the day that we need to become closer to you. And me being like, 20, 21, I was like, what? How does a 7-year-old say something like that? Because I think a lot of times as Christians or believers or spiritual or whatever it is that you believe, we think that life is supposed to be easy. And we think that if I'm a Christian and I do the things I'm supposed to, that I'm going to do whatever, that I will not suffer, that I will not have trials. I mean, look at Joel Osteen. I mean, I don't want to harp on him too much. I'm not the biggest fan. But he says, if you do this, if you support me, if you blah, 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 that your life will be good and you will prosper. And that's not true. You can give everything you have and fail. I think Beyonce said that. You can give everything and fail and lose. But maybe you're supposed to lose. Maybe you're supposed to be broken open. I realized that in my life. I went through what I went through to get to this place. To see all these things that I've gone through, to find a direction, to find a purpose. to find a way off this cliff. Because sometimes when we leap off that cliff, God catches us and gives us wings so that we can soar. And we don't know that in the moment because it's so easy. Whether you're on that cliff where you see a bridge that's tattering and breaking in front of you, whether you're in the fog and you can't see anything around you but yourself, or in that moment when you see nothing at all, God is there, and God is working behind the scenes, behind the fog. He has a net beneath the bridge. He gives you wings. And we are enough. We are enough because God says we are enough. We are vessels. And even broken vessels can be made into beautiful things. I believe it's a Japanese art form where when a pottery breaks, they use gold filament to fill the cracks. And it takes this plain jar, takes this plain thing that could be useless as a piece of pottery. It's now broken. It'd be easy to throw it away. Yet they take this and they fill it with something worth far more than the jar itself. Isn't that what God's doing with us? Isn't that hopeful? Isn't that joy? I think Wesley last week was talking about joy. We as Christians, we don't experience joy enough. I highly recommend that everyone read the book by C.S. Lewis called Surprised by Joy. I think C.S. Lewis is one of the most amazing authors. I think he's one of the most profound theologians that we've ever had. And he talks about what comes with joy, what joy actually means. And I don't want to go in it because my message is not about joy. But it's about, in these moments, when we are on these cliffs, that's when you find out who you really are. That's how you find out where you really are in your life. And so bringing it back, students, when you're in these points, I know some of you have talked about depression, about feeling alone. I know some of you have talked about feeling lost. I know some of you are graduating and figuring out, where am I going to be in my life? What is this going to look like? I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, but I know God does. And I often have to come back and be like, okay, I may not know where I am. And that's okay. But I am who God says I am. And He is going to take me wherever I need to be, whether I like it or not. Because we don't have control over what happens in our lives. Yes, we have free will. We have the option to make choices. I think a lot of times we think we're making choices in defiance, and really that's only leading us to a place where we really need to be. I read this great quote, I think it was on Instagram or something, aren't I the picture child for the millennial age? Of a lot of times when we make decisions, we make a choice to sign up, to try, until we get too uncomfortable. Half the time we don't commit. And we don't have any follow through. And we're like, I'm not going to cross that bridge. I've gone a few feet out and this isn't really good for me. I think I'm going to go back. Maybe they won't kill me. Maybe they won't try to, imprison Indiana Jones. Maybe if I just stay here, the fog will clear and something. Maybe if I jump off the cliff, it won't hurt too much. I don't know where you're at in your life. I don't know what it is that you're struggling with. I don't know what you deal with on a daily basis. None of us really know what's happening in the hearts of each other. I can't sit here and tell you what to do with your life. I can only take examples from mine and hopefully shed some light on yours. I knew, when I started my singing career, I knew that I wanted to go to Bard. And I knew that I wanted to be there. Whether or not I was good enough, I didn't think I was. I didn't think I had a shot. But, looking back, I see things. I saw my desire to go there. I took the chance to apply and be like, well, why not? I really wanted to go. And the weeks leading up to my audition, I was in anxiety and I was freaking out and like really nervous like I normally am before something like that. And I was really struggling with my voice because the weather had been changing. And I struggle with acid reflux and stuff like that, which really affects your voice, even to the day before my audition. And I woke up on the day of that audition, and my voice was great. It was really working that day. And I was like, you know what, I don't know why, but I'm gonna go with it. And I was nervous, I was like, I hope I do well in this audition. I went in there and I came out jumping for joy because I felt like I'd done so well. My parents saw that reaction. And I thought, I was like, okay, maybe I have a chance. And then I got a letter. Not a letter, I guess an email. We're a little more modern than that. A letter from the admissions office saying that I'd been waitlisted. I was crushed, sobbing because I was so disappointed because this is something in my heart that I had so desired. And it put me into a real state of questioning. In a place that was like, what am I going to do? I have no plans for what I'm going to do if I'm stuck here. I don't see anything. I was in a fog. I was in a fog that I created myself because I didn't trust what it is, no matter what that decision, no matter what happened in my life, I didn't trust that that was going to be what was best for me because I saw what I wanted. I'm very stubborn. I get that from my parents. I'm very stubborn. And when I see something and I want it, I go for it, and I will fight everything to get it. And I was a little disappointed because I needed to be put in this place. And then a few weeks later, I got another email saying that I'd been accepted and admitted. And I was so happy. And I was like, I don't know how to feel. I'm feeling really confused because all of this had happened. And then financial aid happened. And I got, some scholarship, but not enough to put me, severely into debt. And so I had to go through this whole process of fighting to get to go there, only to be surprised again when they almost doubled my scholarship. And looking back now in this place, I see where I failed. I see where I lost my nerve. I should have kept going on that bridge. Whether or not their things are snapping beneath me or they're crocodiles, I lost my nerve. And I see now what God was doing in my life behind the scenes. And so I encourage you in your everyday life, don't lose your nerve. Every day, come at your life with this attitude of, I'm going to go, and I'm going to follow, and I'm going to trust what God has put into my life. And I'm going to be open. Because I think a lot of times we, have this idea, we make this resolve that I'm going to do this, when God's like, no, that's not what you're doing. Keep an open mind. Keep an open heart. Allow those cracks and those wounds and those things in you that have been shattered because life has broken you or you have broken yourself. Allow yourself to be filled, to be used, because you are worth way more to God as a filled vessel, as that piece of pottery that has been filled with that gold filament. That is where your beauty lies. Because God himself came to earth to be broken, to be murdered by the people who he came to save. If anyone knows what it feels like to be lost, to feel like I don't want to do this, to pray so hard that they sweat blood because they don't want to do something so badly, but knowing that this is what they're supposed to do. If anyone knows that, Jesus does. God does. And whatever that means for you, I hope that you follow it. And I hope that you Students, I hope that you trust that which you don't understand and find beauty and direction in those moments of feeling lost and feeling like you don't belong, feeling like you have no idea where you are. Because those are your defining moments. And those are the moments that we grow. So I'm going to stop rambling because I've started to do that now. And I'm here with you to go on this journey that is life, and which is scary and unsure. And I hope that you find beauty in your brokenness. And I hope that you find direction in the being lost. So thank you for allowing me to be here and to speak with you and to share a little bit of my life with you. And thanks to my parents for being here. They helped me move yesterday, so they're okay. All right, thank you.